The countdown to the 53-man roster has officially begun. Welcome in Broncos country to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose, and the Broncos have already cut 5 players, so we're going to go in-depth into each one of the Broncos cuts so far, talk about maybe the next wave coming today, possibly, and when we do get some of those, we'll make sure to let you know. And we got a brand new live show time. Today, we will be going live Mondays at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, 4 p.m. Central. So make sure you subscribe and pull up. Also, if you love what you saw from the Broncos this preseason, I know I loved a lot of it. Make sure you hit that thumbs up icon. It's completely free, and it shows me that you support everything that Sean Payton and George Paton are building at Mile High. So at the time of this recording, 5 players have been cut officially. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't return to the Broncos on the practice squad, but none of that designation has happened quite yet. So let's start, of course, with what we know. The first cut being Joaquin Davis, the wide receiver. And I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of these cuts, -1, were not really a surprise to me. I had been hearing whispers about Joaquin Davis having this unbelievable size, and he's got all these characteristics of some really high-end names like Calvin Johnson, but the truth is he's not nearly developed enough to be a wide receiver at the NFL level, at least at this point. He might make the practice squad, and that might be a really good spot for him to continue to develop his training and his skill and his game. But like I said, even though a lot of Broncos media members were high on Davis, he wasn't good enough to make the team. I mean, he only had 1 reception throughout the entirety of this Broncos preseason. So he's probably a good candidate for the practice squad. It should also be mentioned that the Broncos do get 17 practice squad players because of that IPP designation for Jeremy Crawshaw in the event that he doesn't make the 53. So it's really good news that some of these guys could end up continuing to develop their skills at Mile High, but as of right now, Joaquin Davis was one of the first ones to go. Let's move on to our second cut candidate, and that, of course, was Andrew Farmer. Again, like I said, couple of these guys, most of these guys were at the bottom of the roster, so we weren't expecting a lot of these dudes to make the team anyway. Farmer only had 1 tackle throughout the entirety of the preseason. And with an absolutely loaded Denver Broncos defense and the depth that we have seen, not only from, the starters, but also from the 3rd and 4th stringers. I mean, think about this. I just kind of want to sidebar this. The Saints were still playing their 2nd and early 3rd stringers well into the second half, and the Broncos were playing with 3rd and 4th stringers, and the Broncos still won. So most of the cuts were obvious because of the depth on defense, and Farmer is no exception. I view this as kind of like a Sean Payton going through with his coaching staff right now and saying, okay, who are the guys we absolutely know are first to go? And then you start to see everything else kind of trickle down afterwards. Remember, all of the final cuts have to be made by tomorrow, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 3 p.m. Central Time. So far, I want you to grade the first wave of Denver Broncos cuts based off of everything that you have seen. And when I say grade them, I mean, were these expected grades? If it was or expected cuts. If this was an A, it means, yes, these are all guys that we fully expected. B, meaning, it was a pretty good list, but 1 or 2 surprises. Then F would be, I can't believe they cut these guys. Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, before we get into more of who the Broncos' first wave of cuts were, I do have to tell you about today's sponsor, and that, of course, is PrizePicks. Football season is officially back, my friends. We have college football this weekend. It is going to be electric, and we are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL season, and that's where PrizePicks comes in. It's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. It's very simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to $2,000 times your money. It is the best place to win cash while watching sports, so join millions of users and sign up today. All you have to do is download the PrizePicks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. I'll have all of that in the comments and description of today's video for you. PrizePicks, run your game. So now the Broncos moved on to the third and fourth wave of cuts, or the third and fourth people cut on this list. So let's just do this two at a time, because the first one being Micah Abrams, and he was just one of the most recent cornerback signings after Matt Henningsen went down, and they kind of signed him. And I literally said during the video, when I think I mentioned him for about 45 seconds, he was literally just going to be a preseason body, someone that would fill that hole on the roster just to fill it. And he wasn't going to be a guy that made the team whatsoever. So that's not surprising. Here's where the real only surprise comes to me. And I don't think it's a surprise because he got cut, but how early he got cut. Clay Webb, who was kind of boasted about by Sean Payton earlier this offseason, back in May and June during rookie minicamp. He was talking about how powerful and aggressive Clay Webb was, and that he could end up becoming one of those players that ended up making the team, the 53-man roster, as a UDFA. And if we turn back the clock a little bit, there were so many different Broncos outlets, this one included, that were saying Clay Webb might have the best opportunity to end up making the 53-man roster as a UDFA. I mean, there were so many high grades on this guy. And he was touted as the UDFA most likely to make the 53. So to see him as one of the first cuts made is kind of surprising. But then you saw his play on the field. And then the play reminded you that, okay, maybe this isn't nearly as surprising as we thought. He had a 46.9 PFF grade, 2 penalties, and his run blocking left a lot to be desired. But here's the good news. I do think Webb is a prime candidate for the Broncos practice squad. I don't think you could have enough offensive linemen in the reserves, especially with some of the injuries that we've seen to Nick Gargiulo. His run blocking needs a lot of work, and I think that's why he got a cut initially, because if you go back and you look at the tape, if you go back and you look at the PFF grades, you will see there were so many issues, especially him playing guard, where you have to be good in the run blocking scheme, and he just wasn't good enough. He was getting bodied by the defensive linemen and getting bailed out by his other offensive linemen on the Broncos. So there's clearly a lot of size, athleticism, and power and strength that he has to learn, as well as technique on how to pull correctly. There's just a lot of his game that he has to develop. But I do think there's enough there to that he could be designated to the Denver Broncos practice squad. Which leads me into my next question for you. How many UDFAs will make this 53-man roster for the Broncos? Listen, I'm not counting Lavelle Bailey in this because this isn't his first year on the team, so I'm going to take him out of it. I don't know how many do. At most, it's going to be 1, but it could very likely be that 0 UDFAs make this team. But let me know in the comment section down below. Our final cut out of the first wave of cuts is actually the guy who played the best out of this group of 5, and that's Joshua Pickett, the UDFA out of Duke. And Joshua Pickett actually performed, I thought, very well. 5 tackles, 1 interception, and a PBU in the preseason. He played pretty decently. Now, does that mean that he played well enough to garner his spot on the 53? Obviously not. They cut him first string. But I don't think this is a testament to how Josh Pickett played, but more so to how deep the Denver Broncos and how high the expectations are for that Broncos cornerback room. He had a really good preseason and still was one of the very first cuts out of all the Broncos corners. But then we take a look at the Broncos cornerback room as a whole right now, and it's Pat Surtain, it's Riley Moss, it's Jahdae Barron, it's Joaquin McMillian, and Kris Abrams Draine has played outstanding this preseason, And here's my initial thoughts and my kind of overarching take on all of it. The Broncos might only keep 5 cornerbacks because of how versatile these corners are. In the event that someone, hypothetically, Riley Moss goes down, Jahdae flips to the outside, you put Jaquan McMillian at the nickel. And Kris Abrams Draine could easily slide in to that outside corner spot if you wanted to keep Jahdae as that nickel. So I think at this point there's a legitimate possibility that the Broncos only keep 5, and the 5 are automatic locks, in my opinion. Surtain, Moss, Barron, McMillian, and Kris Abrams Draine has absolutely earned that 5th CB spot. Now, in the event that they do keep 6, which is a possibility, I think the last spot ends up going to Damari Mathis. Maybe, maybe not. That's up to Sean Payton, but that 6th spot, if they keep it, is completely up for grabs. So as more cuts come in today, tomorrow, in fact, my phone is blowing up right now. I'm going to make sure that we don't have anyone's coming in right now. We don't. We're good. We're going to keep you updated if something comes in within the next 20 to 25 minutes at the time of this posting. I will pin a comment in the comments and description for you today just to make sure that you keep up with all the latest cuts surrounding the Denver Broncos. But remember, they have to get down now to, we're 85. They have to get down to 53 by 2 o'clock Mountain Time for tomorrow. So that gives them just a little bit over 24 hours. We are on the road to 39,000 subscribers here on the channel, so make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Just 361 away from our next milestone. I can't thank you enough if you have subscribed. Keep up with the very latest surrounding the Denver Broncos. We're going to have news all day for you. And by the way, later on tonight on our live show, I'll have my final 53-man roster projection just for you. Until next time, Broncos fans, Mile High salute. Be cool.